Hello, this is chapter 4 of Black is the Body Motherhood. And this is a story about how Emily Bernard and John got their two children who they adopted from Ethiopia. It starts with Emily Bernard talking about how she doesn't she was struggling to get pregnant, and also how the idea of pregnancy didn't really um, seem to like appeal to her, and she was on these drugs that like made her really cranky, and she busted like a wooden thing over John's head. That was funny. Also, she just always wanted to be a mother, but she wasn't sure she wanted to be a pregnant mother. But she always thought the idea of adoption was cool. And she talked about how in Vermont there was this group of Ethiopian kids who were adopted. So she and John go to Ethiopia, and they talk about how draining the adoption process was, how there was times where they thought that it was gonna fall through and all that, and luckily it didn't, and she was able to adopt two kids. And the two kids, she always told them that they were adopted. She talks about being their mother on earth, and they have a mother in heaven. I think they're about like 5 or 4 in the book. And so yeah, that's pretty much what happens. And then the a lot of the story goes into also how like her friends will make like random jokes like, "Oh wow, look at these boos who've never had to like nurse a baby," and like that was a joke from her friend, but like she took it to heart. Like being like a mom but not a mother really seemed to have gotten to Emily Bernard at times, but overall she was very happy she adopted and all that. Um, so I think interpreting the story, it was she kind of this is the most linear she's told a story so far, except the stabbing, because she pretty much goes from point A to point B to point C, um, and then there's it's just a straight line pretty much from like not wanting to be pregnant to adopting, and so on and so forth. I think this is the most coherent her chapters have been so far. Don't get me wrong, Emily Bernard's a spectacular mother and all that, or a spectacular writer, excuse me. But she at times can be a little sporadic in her writing. I think this is the most linear it's been so far. And to kind of evaluate it, I think for the context of what she was explaining here, because it's not a relatively deep concept like her chapter about talking about the N word or about being married to a white man. I think this is really good, really easy. Keep it simple, and because it's a simple story, so you don't want to make it over elaborate and you don't want to make it too complex so that your readers confused. And it kind of related it back to what we were talking about in class. It goes, we just talked about place and space, and so the places that they have been kind of affect the story. For example, the kids are from Ethiopia. That will always affect their story, and that affects what they think of themselves, and how Emily Bernard thinks of them as children. And however, because they're all from different places, they still created the same space, which is their family, within the idea that this family is one coherent space. Because like as Dr. Vaughn talked about in class, places create space and space create people, and people, but most importantly, people create spaces. And I think it's interesting to note that this family created a space of love, and this idea that they are all one big family, and that's really interesting to hear. Um, and also at the same time, even though this story takes place in different places, it always kind of feels like the space is the same. The space being Emily Bernard's family, and it's interesting to think that like a group of people themselves are a space rather than a physical location being the space. But I think Emily Bernard, the simplicity of the story, really helps carry the weight of that idea that the family itself is its own space. And it doesn't matter where each of them are from physically, from the place standpoint. What matters is where they are now in the confines of a new space, a space where Emily Bernard is not only a mom, but a mother on earth. And I think that's beautiful, and I think Emily Bernard did a fantastic job in illustrating the complexities of being an adoptive mother, but also wanting to make sure that their kids are loved and they know that they are wanted and loved. So yeah, that is Black in the Body chapter 4. Thank you.